Hello and welcome to Vendor Trash. Is the title a reference to my opinions, my drawing skills, or both? That's for you to decide. Real money transactions in WoW. They've been there since Wrath of the Lich King, and we're gonna talk about them. When it comes to these things, I think most players fall into one of two camps. There are those who lose their minds anytime a microtransaction shows up in our subscription-based video game, and there are those who are mostly just kind of okay with their existence. That subscription we pay is still only $15 per month after all, $13 if you're on the max sub length. It's okay if something pops up on the shop on occasion, but I don't think there are very many players whatsoever that fall into the third category of actually being happy that shop cosmetics are a thing. We'd pretty much all prefer if these things were obtainable in-game, barring possibly charity pets. And to be fair, thanks to the WoW token and BlizzBucks, the vast majority of them actually are obtainable with gold. And heck, many later make appearances on the trading posts, so you can buy them with traders' tenders. Though, as these are a limited resource, it doesn't remove quite as much of the sting. Over time, the frequency of these items has increased, but I and many others probably noticed an absolute torrent of them in recent times. As I often do, I'm going to focus exclusively on mounts as they're what I care the most about and am most familiar with. They're also the most expensive items, and the one that Blizz seems to be most leaning into recently. But do keep in mind as I speak about this, that while all of this has been going on, there have been pet and transmog sales as well. So, these are all of the shop and shop adjacent mounts that have been introduced in just over the past 6 months. That is, from 1 week before the War Within's August 22nd launch to February 27th of this year. To start off, on August 20th, 2024, we had the Savage Ebony Battle Turtle. This was only available by buying real-life peripherals in a partnership with SteelSeries. The cheapest of these items that would give you the mount was a $50 desk mount. Then on September 10th, 2024, we had the Grizzly Hills Packmaster for $20. This mount has the same functionality as the Grand Expedition Yak, serving as both a vendor and transmog mount. On October 15th, 2024, we received both the Gigantic Gurlock and the Star-Touched Furline as a reward for anyone who signs up for or was currently on a 12-month subscription. From October 24th, 2024 through January 6th, 2025, we had the Chaos Forged Bundle, which included the Chaos Forged Griffin, Chaos Forged Dreadwing, Chaos Forged Windrider, and Chaos Forged Hippogriff, available for the collective price of $30. And I feel like a lot of players didn't even notice that these ones were on sale because they were completely overshadowed by our next entry. From October 26, 2024 through January 6, 2025, they sold the Trader's Gilded Brutosaur for $90. This one famously has the functionality of both a auction house and mailbox. Starting on November 4th, 2024, you could obtain the Hate-Forged Blaze Cycle, obtained by cashing in points that you received from purchasing Mountain Dew and Doritos products. You could probably expect to spend about $10 obtaining this. Available from December 2nd, 2024 through March 31st, 2025, we have the Sky Witch bundle, which included the Reigns of the Soaring Sky Fox, as well as the Sky Witch attire transmog, and this is available for $30. Starting on December 4th, 2024, there was a partnership with Razer where purchasing their peripherals could obtain you the Coral Stalker Wave Ray. The cheapest of these items that would get you that mount cost $100. On January 14th, 2025, they added the Timbered Sky Snake, which can be purchased independently for $25, or which is given to you for free if you are currently on or purchase a 6 or 12-month subscription. On February 4th, 2025, running until March 31st, 2025, there was the Sweeper bundle, which included the Twilight Witch's Sweeper, the Sky Witch's Sweeper, as well as 600 Traders Tender, available for $30. On February 20th, 2025, they added a bundle for the upcoming release of Mop Classic, which includes the Shaw Warped Cloud Serpent, the Shaw Warped Riding Tiger, and miscellaneous other items for the price of $40. And most recently, on February 27th, 2025, available until March 28th, 2025, there is the Meexie Pack, which includes 5 different Meexie mounts. The Meexie T-Tuft, the Meexie Brew Thief, the Meexie Softpaw, the Meexie Rufflefur, and the Meeksy Rolling Paw. All 5 can be obtained for $65, and the T-Tuft, that is the red and green one, can be purchased on its own for $25. If you lost track of them all, I don't blame you. Now, there are certainly some caveats that can and should be made, but the fact remains that the past half year added 22 mounts that at the very least are not intended to be obtained through gameplay. That's an average of 1 mount almost every week. It's not even funny at this point. For all the deserved slag that got thrown at Bobby Kotick, it feels like Microsoft may be pushing monetization far more than he ever did. The total cost of these mounts is hard to pinpoint exactly, but for me, personally, if I bought all of them for money, other than the ones that I got for free with my subscription, that's a total of $465. Absolute insanity. Now, I want to give Blizzard as fair of a shake as I can here, and so we will run through those caveats now, both the good and the bad. The $50 Savage Ebony Battle Turtle comes with a desk mat. If we give the turtle the usual mount price of $25, that's $25 for the desk mat, which feels expensive to me, but I suppose not egregiously so. And every other Battle Turtle mount has debuted on the trading post, so it feels quite likely that this will come there too, eventually. But that hasn't been communicated in any way thus far, so we can't actually be sure. And notably, this one cannot in any way be obtained with gold either. The gigantic Gurlock and Star-Touched Furline can only be obtained with a 12-month subscription, which also provides the Tempered Sky Snake and the previously released Charming Courier mount. A 12-month sub is $156. How you value these things is going to be extremely subjective. If you weren't planning on playing much and only wanted one of the first 2 mounts, that's a very expensive proposition. If you're like me, want all of them and keep a recurring sub anyway because it's cheaper and you'll be playing anyway, then it's a fantastic deal. They're basically all free. The 4 Chaos Forged mounts, though unobtainable as individual items, are at the same time some of the cheapest mounts ever added, as they come out to just $7.50 a piece. The Longboy is just bad. Really, really bad. $90 for 1 mount is absurdly expensive, and though its added functionality isn't pay to win in a strict sense of the word, it is a huge quality of life improvement, even to someone who already has the mighty Caravan Brutosaur. Admittedly, the old one is nice for when you just want to empty out your bags as you either vendor or auction everything, but the new one is nice because generally when you buy something, you want a mailbox to retrieve it right away. Either way, despite the hefty price tag, this mount is owned by 15% of active accounts. Now, when it comes to the Hate Forged Blaze Cycle, it's hard for me to really be upset about it as it's basically free with one 12-pack of the promo flavors, or if you're like me and never managed to find those flavors, a 24-pack of regular Mountain Dew. I know everyone memed about how it was unobtainable if you didn't want diabetes, but come on. You don't have to chug them all in one go. Soda stays good for a pretty dang long time. And you don't have to consume it all yourself. Mountain Dew feels like the most universally enjoyed soda out there, so one of your friends surely likes it. Though I do feel bad for those who, due to regional hurdles, had difficulty obtaining the codes. The Skywitch bundle is one of the more excusable ones in isolation, as it's pretty much guaranteed to come to the trading post by the end of the year. Any item that says it may come to it in the description pretty much means it will. I cannot remotely justify the Wave Ray. Razer peripherals are expensive as heck, and like with the turtle, you can't even obtain this one with gold. It feels like something that will come to the trading post eventually. It was even data mined with a tender cost. It's kind of disgusting and definitely the mount on this list that most triggers me. The Sweeper bundle is good value for its price. That's only $15 per mount. Plus you get 600 tenders. But that ironically makes me hate the bundle more, because Blizzard even said that tenders as a bonus to shop items was an experiment that they were gonna stop, and yet we're back at it again. I think trading post mounts interacting with the store is a risky line to tread. Moving them from one to the other is okay-ish because it's usually very telegraphed, and it only really affects you if you want that specific item. But something as fluid and limited as tenders never feels good to see attached to shop items. I don't really mind the Mop Classic mounts because ultimately they're limited to doing one of these bundles per expansion. I mean, they could do more, but they haven't, so I'll be kind. And lastly, the Meeksy mounts come out to only $13 each, which is the usual sale price of mounts. But if all you wanted was one of the colorations and it isn't the red and green one, well, tough cookies. That's $65 for the one you care about and 4 recolors. So, for all of the shilling I probably did there, it still doesn't feel like a great situation to be in. Aside from it just being a lot in a short time frame, there are other dirty practices at play. There are bundles. Bundles can be nice as an option for purchase, but when it's your only way to get something, it lets vendors justify taking more of your money for stuff you don't care about because, hey, technically you're getting more. The worst so-called bundles of the bunch are those tied to different companies like SteelSeries and Razer, because they're entirely divorced from WoW's economy, and the justification tactic gets even stronger when you're being provided with physical items. The fact that many of these mounts are time-limited FOMO items is also shady. I wouldn't mind having to scrounge together gold for these over time, but many of them only have about a 2-month window for you to need to collect almost 600,000 gold in the case of the $30 bundles. That's by no means undoable, but it can mean playing the game a lot more than you normally would. And it winds up being a lot more than 300,000 per month when multiple of these FOMO items are being rolled out in overlapping windows. And at this point, you can probably assume even more will be announced before it's all done. Yes, most, if not all of these mounts will return at some point, but some may be gone for years, so it's not exactly reassuring. Also, and it's by no means the most important factor, but a handful of these, the Battle Turtle, the Wave Ray, the Blaze Cycle, Gilded Brutosaur, and the Chaos Forge bundle, were tied to the 20th anniversary event. You'd feel like that'd be a time to celebrate and to make players feel good about the state of the game, but instead many players felt absolutely scalped for cash with these constant promotions. Lastly, there's the fact that a lot of these mounts could have been tied to in-game activities. Perhaps it's naive to think they would have been, as dev time is not infinite, but still, how much cooler would the Meeksy mounts be if we had to go to Pandaria and unlock them in some way? How much cooler would the Gilded Brutosaur feel if it were, say, a reward for 1,000 mounts? Instead, it's just kind of lame. Now, I must acknowledge the biggest counterpoint to all of this complaining that I'm doing: they're just cosmetics. Who cares? They don't afford you any power. And you know what? You're correct. Nothing is compelling me to get all of them other than my own collector mindset. But I think it's also fair to point out that for a lot of players, collecting stuff is one of, if not the main activity they engage in. And though shop mounts have been around since Wrath, we're sort of in a boiling frog situation. We complained, but we tolerated it. They started doing it more. We complained, but tolerated it because it wasn't that much worse. And so on and so forth until we get to where we are today. If someone was just starting out collecting today, they'd at least know how much cash or gold they'd have to throw at this venture for shop mounts. No collector from 2008 thought they'd have to account for 22 cash mounts in half a year. And to add to that, collectors are some of WoW's most loyal customers. Do you really want to burn them of all people? Yes, they're willing to endure a lot of BS, but everyone has their limits. Lastly, I want to talk about possible solutions, and not just the solution we all want of stop doing it altogether. I'm going to be a realist here. Shop cosmetics aren't going anywhere, but we can scale it back and make things more stomachable. So here are the tenets that I think Blizzard needs to stick to. First, make it predictable. Everyone expects an expansion collector's edition to come with cosmetics. Everyone now expects a classic expansion to be accompanied by a similar bundle. And frankly, everyone should expect a subscription mount every 6 months. These mounts aren't nearly as triggering as the random ones that pop up in between. Second, keep the subscription mount rewards, but always give the option to buy them as individual mounts as well. This way, they function as a nice freebie for consistent players, and more intermittent players have a means to get them without having to commit to a large subscription they may not otherwise want. One every 6 months is fine. If you want to do an extra mount for 12 months as well, then okay, but again, let it be bought separately. And I don't think we need 2 mounts per year for this even, just 1 is fine. Or none. And thirdly, never add rewards that are earned externally from WoW, or at least keep it very cheap like with the Mountain Dew one. It feels terrible being scammed into buying overpriced peripherals that we don't need. Following these practices, we'd be getting approximately 4 cash mounts per year. 2 6-month sub-mounts, 1 12-month sub-mount, and the collector's edition mount from either retail or classic releases. So about 2 mount per 6-month window, which makes the company a whole lot less money and won't happen again at this point, but I think most WoW players would shut their traps if this was all, or at least close to all, we were being hit with. And player contentment is not financially worthless, even if its value is harder to track. So that's it. In sum, cut it out, Blizzard, or Microsoft, or whoever's making these decisions. I wasn't quite sure at first who to choose for this week's drawing. Based on the mounts I talked about, I did think about doing Yashiraj, but we never got a shot of Greed, so I decided to go a different route. I know a lot of people's pick would have been Galliwix because, oh, he's WoW's version of Bobby Kotick, it's so funny. But I didn't want to do that either because this is a very negative video, and I really like Galliwix. So instead, I went with a goblin that I don't like so much nowadays, Monty Gazlowe. Like I've said in the past, I would have been fine with Gazlowe as the goblin racial leader had they just given him to us back in Cataclysm. Nobody really liked or cared about Galliwix back then. But then BFA happened, and they made Galliwix one of the most entertaining characters to have around. And then they kicked him out as part of an effort to remake the Horde's image. And they shoehorned Gazlowe in even though he was from a different cartel. And ever since, every time Gazlowe makes an appearance is to espouse the values of workers' rights. Which again, to be clear, I absolutely support in real life, but pushing that message and using goblins as the vehicle for it is just kind of really lame and boring. And though on the whole, I'm really loving the Undermine patch so far, that messaging has kind of polluted the entire experience. You've got Gazlowe constantly belly aching about how awful of a place Undermine is and nobody should want to be there. And anytime a goblin that isn't being treated as a straight up villain does anything even slightly morally dubious, they've got a family back home they gotta look out for. Now don't get me wrong, I don't want every goblin to be stereotyped into explosives, horrible safety standards, and greedy behavior, but I also don't want every race in the game to feel like a slight deviation from real life humans. It just feels so homogenized. So yeah, Gazlowe's recent WoW model takes a lot of inspiration from his HOTS model, just without the backpack robot, which I did decide to incorporate here to make my life more difficult. And I set him outside of his old house in Ratchet in the Northern Barrens. At least the background was fairly easy on this one. But that's enough prattling from me for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next week. Bye-bye!